What's good, Foundation Nation? I'm here with a new putter from Prodigy. This is the PX-3. They're calling this an overstable putter, 340 2.5 on the flight numbers. I'm pretty familiar with the PA3. I used to throw a bit of Prodigy, putted with PA3s, threw them a little bit. This seems significantly different, bigger bead, lower profile, flatter top. So I'm assuming the use for this is probably going to be mostly as a throwing putter. We've got it in 500 plastic here. This is one of their newer blends. This is, I would kind of describe this maybe as a stiffer 400G, maybe is what I would say. Then I have 400 plastic here, and then two of the baselines, 350G and 300. I imagine they'll all fly somewhat similar. They're all brand new. So we got a little bit of wind out here today. There's always wind around here, but it does calm down from time to time. But we'll get to see a little bit how it fights wind. You know, I think if it's claiming to be an overstable putter, we should know how it fights the wind anyways. So I'm gonna rip it out on a backhand first, pretty flat, and we'll just see what happens. This is the 500 plastic. I'm just gonna rip it out pretty flat, slightly downhill with a little bit of right to left headwind. Oh, wow. Okay, so threw that pretty hard and pretty flat, and it didn't have any intentions of turning, even with a little bit of wind. It did kind of pick up and fade left at the end with that crosswind, but honestly, something I did notice is it kind of just coasted left at the end. It didn't really dump and show a lot of the bottom of the disc to the wind, which kind of helped it get down a little quicker. That was a very nice flight, and it handled all of my speed, which isn't that much, but a little bit. It handled all of the torque without having any, thoughts of turning over. So that was a nice flight on the backhand. So I'm gonna throw another backhand with the 400 plastic one. Should be the same flight as far as the plastic is concerned. I'm gonna give this one some ante, really rip on it, and just see if it wants to fight out of it or if it just kind of holds its line. This disc has a pretty unique flight to it. I mean, that definitely, it kind of softly held the Anheuser line and just fluttered to the ground. This disc does not seem to want to take super hard angles left or right. When I threw it flat, I mentioned it kind of had that coast left, and this one kind of did the same thing where it just fell out of the sky. That's kind of a characteristic you see with straighter putters a lot, where they have that like no fade, but this disc has a pretty cool flight. It wants to stay in the air as well. It doesn't have like an overstable dump to the end of the flight. It really has some decent glide. We'll see what it does on hyzer. I think that'll be kind of telling to see if I give it some hyzer, if it wants to knife, or if it kind of just pushes and fades a little bit left. That would be interesting. So we'll do that next. So now I have, this is the 350G one. If it does something, it should fly the same. I mean, it is a different plastic, it's baseline, but it is brand new. If it does something that seems out of the ordinary, might have to test the other ones. But I'm gonna give this one a good bit of hyzer, a lot of hyzer. Might pop up a little bit with the wind, but I'm expecting it to kind of just hold it. I'm curious to see if it really bites or if it kind of just slowly fades to the left. So that disc made its way a long way left. However, I don't want to say it was necessarily knifing left. I think most of that had to do with the right to left crosswind. It didn't really ever want to get super vertical and show its face. It was kind of just like a pushing left flight. Pretty solid. Nothing this disc does is super crazy. It kind of just has a consistent flight to it on the backhand. We'll give it a toss with the forehand, see what that's all about. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and throw a chip forehand with this. We're down at the bottom of the hill now, but it shouldn't really matter for this shot other than just know the wind is a little more tail left to right here. So just a little chip forehand, see what it does. Oh, love it. I can't lie to you, this disc is pretty cool. It is a kind of a rare breed for putters, something that I really love in my driving putters, which is a disc that is going to handle a lot of power. However, for a putter like this that has the kind of glide it does, to handle a forehand like that is pretty solid. And it has like all the torque resistance you want, but it doesn't dump at the end. Something that I used to throw a lot was S-Line P2s. It reminds me of that in a way. Very different feel wise, And it's not nearly as deep. It has a huge bead on it, but it accomplishes a similar thing to where I feel like I could throw this hard and I'm getting the overstability in that sense as a putter, but it's not gonna just, you know, knife into the ground at the end and skip or something like that. It kind of just works its way left at the end and drops. I'm gonna give it another throw up the hill hard, just as like one final test, and we'll see what happens. Going with the 400. I'm gonna give this one, now that the wind is on my left a little more, I'm gonna throw it flat and just see if the wind does anything crazy to it. Pretty good. I gotta say, this disc it might end up in my bag. This is pretty impressive. This putter does not seem to be phased a lot by the wind or elevation. It's kind of just like taking the power I put into it and just flying the way it wants to. I'd be curious, I don't know what it's gonna do from like necessarily a shorter upshot distance, but as far as a driving putter, which I think is kind of what this is meant to accomplish, being lower profile, overstable. All right, I'm a big fan of this putter. I'm gonna give this a final score of an 8.7. I think this is a very solid putter. I think this does exactly what it says. It could be a little misleading for some people. I think that's why I'm gonna knock a few points off, because I don't know if I would call it an overstable putter. People might get a little confused with that because they're thinking overstable putter and they kind of lean towards that zone category I mentioned before, where you're throwing flex shots. You know, that's not really the flight you're getting out of this. What you are gonna get out of this, seemingly, is a disc that you can crush on, wind, no wind, doesn't matter, and it's gonna hold up. It's gonna fly pretty far, and you're gonna get a nice consistent flight, so it's gonna be very useful off the tee. And I'm a fan. This man in my bag. But yeah, I think comment below what your favorite Prodigy mold is, and you might win one of these PX3s I was throwing here in the video. And other than that, we'll see you next time.